Let me start with this. Most of the time, the biggest shifts in life don't begin with something dramatic. They begin with a small decision, a subtle choice that seems harmless, but behind it, a domino effect that can either build you or break you. For me, that decision was quitting my stable job to follow what I thought was my passion. Sounds noble, right? It wasn't. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have savings that could last a year. I didn't even have clarity about what that passion actually was. I just knew I was exhausted, worn out from the cycle of corporate life deadlines meetings, the same desk, the same people. And I genuinely believed that I was meant for something more, something bigger. I still remember the morning I handed in my resignation letter. It was raining outside, a kind of soft, cinematic drizzle. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. My boss read the letter, looked at me with this mix of sympathy and doubt, then said, "Well, good luck." I thought that moment would feel like freedom. Instead, that was the start of a free fall. Passion doesn't pay rent. At first, I felt alive, excited, motivated. I'd wake up early, journal, read all the self-help books. I built a blog. I launched a YouTube channel. I tried affiliate marketing, drop shipping, every trending niche I saw on YouTube, promising 6 figures in 6 months. 3 months later, not a single dollar. No income, no followers, no momentum. Just me sitting at a desk, refreshing analytics that never moved. I stopped eating out, canceled every subscription, moved out of my apartment, and crashed on a friend's couch. And the scariest part wasn't being broke. It was waking up every morning with this voice in my head asking, what if I was wrong about myself? I didn't fear failure. I feared that maybe I was never meant to do anything great to begin with, that maybe the world was right and I had just been delusional. The trap of one more course. That's when I fell into the next trap. I told myself, the problem isn't me, it's that I just don't know enough. So I bought another course, Mastering Niche Marketing in 2025. How to grow a YouTube channel to 10K subscribers in 30 days. Make passive income with AI tools. I studied like my life depended on it, took notes, made spreadsheets, watched every tutorial twice, but I still didn't act. I wasn't building anything. I was just consuming. I became addicted to the illusion of progress. Learning felt productive, but in reality, I was hiding from execution, hiding from risk, hiding from the brutal truth that knowledge isn't power, applied knowledge is. I kept saying, once I finish this next course, I'll start. But I never started. The real problem wasn't knowledge. It was discipline. One night I stumbled across an old video of mine, the very first one I ever made. It was awkward, grainy. I was mumbling. But something about it stopped me cold. My eyes. There was this spark, this naive confidence, this raw belief that I could build something meaningful, and I had lost it. I didn't cry because I was embarrassed. I cried because I missed that version of me, the version that believed before the world told him not to. That night, I realized no course, no niche, no tactic that was going to save me. What I needed was discipline, not another plan, not another motivational podcast, just the guts to start and stick with it. I started with the smallest possible things. I woke up at 7 a.m. every day. Even if I had nowhere to be, I wrote 500 words every morning. even if no one read them. I shut off social media for 8 hours a day, even if my brain screamed for dopamine. I didn't tell anyone. No Instagram updates, no public declarations. I wasn't doing this for applause. I was doing it for me, because for the first time I understood if I couldn't keep a promise to myself when no one was watching, I'd never build anything real. 3 weeks later, I posted the first video in my rebuild series. It was just me sitting on the floor of a nearly empty room, talking to a camera with a cracked lens. No transitions, no hooks, no clickbait. I told the truth. I tried. I failed. I almost gave up. But I'm starting again. It got maybe 47 views, most from bots. But one comment changed everything. Thank you. I feel like someone finally understands what I'm going through. That one sentence. It reignited the fire I thought I had lost. Because even if I wasn't making money, I was making impact. The real shift begins. What happened next wasn't glamorous. No viral explosion, no six-figure launch. But day by day, I started showing up with integrity. My work got cleaner. My message got clearer. My mind got quieter. And for the first time in months, I wasn't chasing money. I was building something real. Let's talk about something nobody really explains when they tell you to chase your dreams or start your own thing. They skip this part. It's not exciting. It's not sexy. But it's the reason most people fail. Momentum, not motivation. Momentum. Because motivation is emotional. It depends on how you feel when you wake up. It comes and goes. But momentum is mechanical. It's a rhythm, a habit. A quiet stacking of wins, small wins that nobody claps for, but that slowly turn into something powerful. And you want to know the truth? Most of the early momentum you'll build happens in silence. Nobody's cheering you on. Nobody's validating you. Nobody's even noticing. And that's exactly why it's so hard to build. The quiet days matter most. There's a weird thing that happens when you're trying to change your life, when you finally stop quitting, halfway stop starting over every Monday. You start waking up to the same boring routine. And for the first few days, it feels empowering. You feel in control, disciplined. But by day 7, day 10, it gets quiet, repetitive, unrewarding. You start wondering, does this even matter? Let me tell you, yes, it does. Those are the days that separate the talkers from the doers, the dabblers from the builders, the people who build identity from the ones who just collect dopamine. Because the real transformation isn't about achieving some massive result quickly. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need the result to stay committed. Systems over willpower. During that period, I realized something life-changing. Willpower is trash. Systems are everything. If you have to constantly convince yourself to do the work, you're set up to fail. So I ask myself, how do I create an environment where showing up becomes the default, not the battle? I rearranged my space. No distractions. Desk near sunlight. Phone out of sight. Noise-canceling headphones. Timer on my browser. I made it hard to mess up because I knew my future didn't depend on trying harder. It depended on making success easier to repeat. I stopped watching other people win. This part stings. I was spending hours watching people win. People in my niche posting wins, hitting goals, showing off passive income dashboards. At first, I told myself it was inspiration. But deep down, I was getting more satisfaction from watching them grow than from doing my own work. So I made a hard decision. I unfollowed almost everyone in my space, not out of envy, out of self-protection. Because comparison isn't just the thief of joy, it's the thief of focus. I didn't need another 10-step formula. I needed fewer inputs. The first real win that no one saw. About 6 weeks into my rebuild, I hit my first win. Not a viral video, not a $10K launch. Just this. I posted 3 videos per week for 4 weeks without missing a single one. That's it. But let me tell you, that win meant more than any metric, because for the first time in my life, I kept a promise to myself. And when I hit publish on that 12th video, I didn't feel excited. I felt solid, anchored, capable, like I could finally trust myself again. That feeling, it's addicting. People started to notice. Slowly a comment here, a DM there. Nothing crazy. But they said things like, "You're getting better fast. Your storytelling feels real." I relate to this way more than those of perfect influencers. That was my confirmation people don't connect with perfection. They connect with honesty. They don't care if your B-roll is cinematic. They care if your message is authentic. And because I stopped chasing the highlight reel, I finally started creating things I was proud of. Fear never leaves, but you can shrink it. Here's something that might surprise you. Even after all the progress, I was still scared. Scared of judgment, of failure, of putting in all this effort, and still ending up broke and forgotten. But I learned a trick. Whenever fear showed up, I'd ask myself, what action can I take right now to prove fear wrong? Not a huge leap, just one small move. Write one paragraph, record the intro, outline the next video. I started shrinking fear not by fighting it, but by out-executing it. Fear loses power when you move. The equation that changed everything. One night I scribbled a formula in my notebook. Clarity plus discipline plus time equals sign unstoppable. It sounds simple, and it is. Clarity is knowing what you want and why. Discipline is doing it when it's boring. Time is the multiplier. Most people have one, some people have 2, but almost nobody gives it enough time. I decided I'm going to give this one full year. Not 3 weeks, not until it gets hard. 1 year of no excuses. That decision, it changed everything. Here's something nobody talks about enough. The moment you start making real progress, not the flashy kind, but the actual deep, sustainable kind, there's this awkward, messy middle phase. You're not invisible anymore, but you're not exactly winning either. You're somewhere in between. You're being noticed, but not yet validated. That phase, it's weird. And for me, it was filled with second-guessing. You've changed. When I started showing up more consistently, I noticed something. People I hadn't heard from in months suddenly reappeared. Friends, distant family members, old coworkers. Not with congratulations, but with caution. You've changed. You're different now. Why are you trying so hard? And here's the truth, I had changed. But not in the way they meant it. I wasn't arrogant. I wasn't fake. I wasn't trying to be better than anyone. I was just growing. And sometimes your growth reminds people of their own stagnation. That's not your fault. The audience you build is a mirror. As I kept posting videos, something strange happened. The audience that started finding me, they weren't looking for success hacks. They weren't chasing dopamine. They weren't trying to skip the work. They were real people tired of the BS, tired of the surface-level advice. They wanted depth, vulnerability, truth. And the more I leaned into that, into being honest, not just helpful, the more my audience grew. That's when I realized something powerful. Your audience will reflect the energy you give them. If you show up authentic, grounded, real, they will too. But if you show up chasing trends, trying to be someone else, you'll attract people who expect a mask. And trust me, you do not want to build a niche based on pretending. Metrics that matter less than you think. For the first time, my videos started hitting 1K, 2K, then 5K views. But weirdly, I didn't feel excited. I felt cautious, because now I understood views can lie to you. They can make you chase quantity over quality. They can make you create things for attention, not impact. I had to pause and ask myself, what am I really trying to build here? Because if the answer is a viral hit, that's just a sugar rush. But if the answer is a loyal, engaged, connected audience that actually cares, that's a legacy. I reinvented my definition of success. Old me used to think success was $10, K months, 100K subs, passive income dashboards, laptops on the beach. But new me, success became waking up excited to create, knowing exactly who I serve, having people message me saying, your video helped me get through the week. I realized real success is peace, clarity, direction. It's not the metrics. It's how you feel when you log off for the night. And if your niche drains, you confuses, you burns you out. That's not success. That's a trap. The work became my identity. I stopped calling myself a content creator. I started calling myself a builder, because that's what I was doing, building a message, a mindset, a brand, brick by brick, day by day. The shift wasn't external. It was internal. I started treating my work like a craft, not a gamble. I respected my output. I refined it. I optimized it. I protected it. That shift in how I saw myself changed how everyone else saw me too. Because people don't respond to talent. They respond to conviction. And when you speak from clarity, when you operate from purpose, people feel it. The tipping point wasn't one video. It was consistency. Let me clear this up once and for all. There's no one video that changes everything. There's no magic moment. There's only this consistency that compounds. Every single person who looks like an overnight success, they weren't. They just kept going when no one was watching. That's what I did. I kept publishing, kept improving, kept listening to feedback, but filtering the noise. After a while, it added up. I started getting emails from people I didn't know. This part hit me hard. Someone emailed me a long message. They said, I don't know you, but I feel like I do. Your story made me believe I'm not too late. That line wrecked me, because in the middle of all the planning, editing, scripting, optimizing, I forgot the real reason I started. To reach people, to serve people, to tell the truth no one else was willing to say. That email became a screenshot on my wall. Every time I doubted myself, I'd look at it. It reminded me I wasn't just chasing numbers. I was creating change. When you finally start to win, stay humble, stay hungry. Here's the twist. Success doesn't get easier. It just changes form. Now you're fighting new battles, expectation, pressure to outperform. fear of falling off, comments that sting more than they should. But you handle those challenges with the same tools you use to start: focus, clarity, daily discipline, ignoring the noise, sticking to your mission. I didn't arrive. I just evolved, and every step forward came with a new layer of self-awareness. Here's the part no one really tells you about. Once things start working, once the followers show up, the views rise, the money trickles in, it doesn't solve all your problems. Sometimes it does the opposite. Success exposes the cracks. Because when things were quiet, I could blame the silence. I could say I'm just not there yet, or I'll deal with that stuff once I've made it. But once momentum hit, there were no more excuses. Suddenly, I had to face the habits, thoughts, and fears I had been hiding behind the hustle. You can't outgrow what you refuse to face. Here's what happened. I started to feel unsteady. Even as I was winning, I noticed myself slipping, checking analytics 5 times a day, feeling anxious after every upload, obsessing over comments, especially the negative ones. It wasn't burnout. It was something deeper. I hadn't built emotional regulation. I was still letting external validation determine how I felt internally. If a video flopped, I felt like I was worthless. If one did well, I felt invincible for a moment. Then the cycle repeated. And that's when it hit me. I hadn't built stability. I had built a system of reactivity. You don't just need strategy. You need nervous system strength. I started researching, not tactics, not growth hacks. I started studying neuroscience, dopamine regulation, emotional discipline. That's when I discovered people like Andrew Huberman and the science behind the brain-body connection that no one in the grind world talks about. Here's what I learned. You can't be creative when your nervous system is overloaded. You can't build long-term consistency if your dopamine is fried. You can't lead a community if your emotions are constantly hijacked by noise. So I made a decision. To become unshakable, I had to train not just my skills, but my system. I started rebuilding myself from the inside out, and it wasn't glamorous. No aesthetics, no journaling with candles, no digital detox in the woods. Just work. Cold showers every morning, not for trend, for discipline. Sunlight within 30 minutes of waking to reset my circadian rhythm. Yoga nidra for 20 minutes a day to reset my mental state. Ultradian rhythm cycles, 90 minutes of work, 15-minute break, like clockwork. Single tasking, no more 15 tabs open, no more trying to multitask efficiency. Within 10 days, my focus was sharper. Within 21 days, my anxiety lowered. By day 30, I was producing better content with less stress in less time. I wasn't trying harder. I was running cleaner. Success without identity is fragile. There was still one more lesson I didn't see coming. After a few wins back-to-back videos, going semi-viral podcast invites collaborations, I started asking a dangerous question. What do people want from me? And suddenly, I wasn't creating from the heart anymore. I was performing. I wasn't thinking, what message do I need to share today? I was thinking, what will get the most clicks? And when that happens, even if you're succeeding on paper, you're losing something bigger, your identity. I had to re-anchor to my why. So I went back to the basics. I asked myself, who do I want to help? Why do I care? What would I say if views didn't exist? And the truth was clear. I wanted to speak to people like the old me, People stuck in self-doubt, people who wanted to build something real but didn't know how, people who were tired of the fake motivation and just needed clarity. That became my compass. Not likes, not virality, just impact. You can't lead if you don't own your shadow. The more my audience grew, the more I realized this. People don't just follow what you teach, they mirror what you embody. So, if I wanted to create an audience that was resilient, honest, and unshakable, I had to live it. And that meant confronting my shadow, the part of me that still wanted approval, the part that feared rejection, the part that compared myself to creators 10 steps ahead. It was uncomfortable. But growth isn't just about addition. It's about subtraction. Removing the parts of you that no longer serve the person you're becoming. I built emotional boundaries fast. To stay sane, I built rules. No checking analytics after 6 p.m. No responding to hate comments ever. 1 day a week, completely offline. Creating before consuming always. These weren't restrictions. They were reinforcements for my peace. Because I learned peace is a competitive advantage. When your mind is calm, your work is clearer. Your decisions are cleaner. Your communication is sharper. And your impact way deeper. The more you grow, the more you have to protect your mind. This is the paradox of success. Growth makes you visible. Visibility attracts pressure, noise, expectation. And the only way to stay grounded through all of it is to build yourself into someone unshakable. Not perfect, not fearless, just steady, rooted, intentional. The kind of person who doesn't flinch when the algorithm shifts, who doesn't fold when the views dip, who doesn't panic when someone copies their content. Because you know you're not here for flashes. You're here for legacy. So let's talk about what happens when people start listening. Not just watching, not just liking or commenting, but really genuinely listening. This is the part where everything shifts from simply being a content creator to becoming a leader of a community. And trust me, the responsibility changes everything. You don't just create for you anymore. I remember the first time I got a DM that stopped me cold. It said, "Your videos are the reason I didn't give up this week. Not thanks for the tips, not great video." No, this was real, raw, human. And it made me realize something important. What you put out into the world matters more than you know. You may be talking into a camera in your room, thinking no one's watching. But someone out there is, and to them, you're not just entertainment. You're a lifeline. You go from algorithm-focused to human-focused. At first, I chased keywords, hooks, retention tricks, thumbnails optimized to death. And sure, those things matter. They help you grow. But after a while, I noticed something odd. The videos that connected the most weren't the ones with the perfect packaging. They were the ones where I sat down and just talked like a human. No scripts, no clickbait, just me speaking directly to them, the real people on the other side of the screen. And that's when I realized the algorithm doesn't make you powerful. Connection does. An audience consumes, a community contributes. Big difference. An audience will show up when you're trendy. A community shows up when you're honest. An audience wants value. A community shares it with others. An audience leaves when the hype dies down. A community stays because they're emotionally invested. I stopped asking, how do I get more views? I started asking, how do I create belonging? How do I make people feel seen, understood, safe? Because here's the truth. No one in the growth space likes to admit people won't remember your tactics. They'll remember how you made them feel. I started naming my people sounds simple, but it was powerful. I gave my community a name, not a fan base, not followers. I called them builders because that's what we were doing together, building purpose, building habits, building lives that matter. And something beautiful happened. They started using the name. They started calling each other that. They started building with me, not just watching me. That's when I knew this wasn't a channel anymore. It was a movement. When you lead with conviction, people feel it. Conviction is a strange thing. It doesn't yell. It doesn't beg. It just radiates. You don't need to convince anyone when you're anchored in what you believe. I wasn't trying to be motivational. I wasn't trying to be the smartest. I was just being clear. Here's who I am. Here's who I'm not. Here's what I stand for. Here's what I refuse to tolerate. And people responded because in a world of noise, someone who speaks with clarity cuts through like a blade. You start attracting the right people and repelling the wrong ones. And yes, that includes losing subscribers. Good, because the more clear I got, the more polarizing I became. Some people left. They unsubscribed. They thought I was too serious, too intense, or not entertaining enough. And I didn't flinch, because I didn't build this to be a playground. I built it to be a place of transformation. If people want fluff, there are millions of channels for that. But if someone wants growth, discipline, truth, they'll find their way here, and they'll stay. From content to conversations, something else shifted too. My videos became conversations, not monologues. I started asking questions, reading DMs, responding to comments, not just to say thanks, but to understand. What are people really struggling with? What's behind the pain they never post about? And slowly, I started shaping my content not just around what I wanted to say, but around what they needed to hear. Not to please them, but to serve them. Big difference. The power of being the mirror. I realized that people don't need a savior. They need a mirror. Someone who shows up fully, honestly, vulnerably, and reflects what's possible back to them. Someone who reminds them, you're not broken. You're not late. You're not too far gone. You just haven't had the right system, structure, and support yet. That's what I became. Not an expert, a mirror. And in doing so, I became more powerful than any niche keyword or viral trend could offer. Your story becomes their strategy. People started saying, I used your routine. I quit my job after your video. I finally built my system and I feel in control again. They weren't just inspired, they were activated. Because once people see someone like them doing the work, they stop seeing it as impossible. That's the ripple effect. That's when the work starts scaling without you needing to scream. Because your story becomes their strategy. Your clarity becomes their permission. And that's how you go from being a creator to being a guide. So here's the paradox. You finally start building something real. People listen, people care. You're making an impact. And then the pressure hits you from the side like a freight train. You need to scale. You need to monetize faster. You should be posting more often. You should be doing brand deals. You should hire a team. And while none of those things are wrong, they can quietly become the very things that pull you away from what made your content work in the first place. Growth is not the same as expansion. Let me say that again. Growth is internal. Expansion is external. You can grow as a creator, get clearer, sharper, more intentional without necessarily expanding into more content, more platforms, more noise. But in this industry, they sell you the opposite. They make you feel like if you're not on TikTok, LinkedIn Threads, YouTube, Shorts, Reels, a podcast, a newsletter, and live streaming twice a week, you're behind. And that mindset, it burns good creators to the ground. You don't need to be everywhere. You need to be rooted. I had to ask myself, where am I most effective? Not just where I'm getting the most reach, but where I'm delivering the most depth. Because reach without resonance is a waste of energy. So I doubled down on the platform where I felt most aligned. For me, that was YouTube, long form, intentional. Not chasing trends, just building truthfully. I started saying no to expansion that wasn't rooted in strategy or sustainability. Do less, do it better, do it deeper. That became my new motto, monetizing without manipulating. Let's talk about money, because once you build trust, you'll be tempted to monetize it fast. Courses, affiliate links, brand deals, coaching memberships, it's all out there. And if you're not careful, it can make you weird. Suddenly, you go from authentic creator to sales funnel manager. And your audience, they feel it. They start to question your motives. They become skeptical, not because you charge money, but because you shifted your energy. Here's what I decided: I'll never sell something I wouldn't recommend to my closest friend. No shady upsells, no fake urgency, no manipulating pain points. Just value priced, fairly delivered honestly, and rooted in actual transformation. Systems over hustle again. As things grew, my time became my most limited resource. I had to build systems or burn out, so I mapped out every repetitive task. Upload checklists, comment management, email templates, content idea banks, SOPs for editing. Then I hired help not to offload responsibility, but to amplify impact. I didn't hire a VA so I could be lazy. I hired one so I could focus on the deep work only I could do. The mission stayed the same, but now it had infrastructure. I built a revenue system. I wasn't embarrassed by this was key. There's a lot of talk about passive income in the creator space. But here's the thing, money without meaning is empty. So I asked, how do I make money ethically? How do I keep my content free and accessible while also building something sustainable? How do I reward trust, not exploit it? Here's what I came up with: a low-ticket product to help beginners take their first real step, a mid-tier system that teaches them how to build consistency, an optional mentorship layer not for everyone, just for those ready for intensity. No hype, no secrets, no BS. Just value at every level, free or paid. I protected my peace like it was profit. Let me say this: success will test your peace harder than failure ever did. When nobody knows you, there's freedom. But when people start watching, expecting, everything gets louder. And if you don't build boundaries, the noise will eat you alive. So I made peace a line item in my business. Daily walks, no phone. Sundays offline, no negotiation. Journaling, not for the algorithm, but for me. Regular no-content weeks to reconnect with the mission. You can't pour from a drained mind. Protect your energy like it's equity, because it is. Stop trying to be viral. Be vital. The best compliment I ever got. I don't binge your videos. I return to them. That's the difference between being viral and being vital. Viral gets shared once. Vital gets saved. Viral is consumed. Vital is trusted. And trust is the most powerful currency you can build. Because trust isn't just what gets people to click. It's what gets them to stay. Don't lose yourself in the metrics. Here's the brutal truth. Your audience will change. Your views will fluctuate. The algorithm will shift. Your offers will need updates, and some people will leave. That's life. That's business. That's the game. But the one thing that shouldn't change, you. Your values, your tone, your mission, your voice. You didn't build all of this just to become a puppet to trends. You built it to free yourself. So stay free. At some point, the chase for views, subs, and revenue stops being exciting. Not because you don't appreciate growth, but because something deeper begins to stir in you. You start asking bigger questions. What does this actually mean in 5 years? If I stopped uploading tomorrow, would any of this still matter? Am I building something that outlives me? And that right there is the turning point between just being a content creator and becoming a legacy builder. The algorithm can't be the architect of your mission. Here's the trap most creators fall into. They start with a mission. But over time, the algorithm becomes their blueprint. They stop creating from conviction. They start reverse engineering from what's trending. And slowly they lose themselves. Don't get me wrong, data matters. But data can't dictate your identity. You have to know the difference between feedback and direction. Analytics show you how you're being heard, but your vision must decide what gets said in the first place. What you create is a time capsule. Every video, every post, every idea you share online becomes part of your digital DNA. You're literally creating an archive of your values, your thinking, your lessons. So the real question becomes, if someone watched your content 10 years from now, what would it teach them? Not just about tactics, but about who you were. I want my channel to feel like a compass. Not just here's what to do, but here's how to think. That's legacy, not viral moments, but enduring philosophies. You build depth by repeating your truth. You don't need a new message every week. In fact, the most iconic creators, people like Seth Godin, Simon Sinek, or even Huberman, they don't change their core message. They refine it over and over. Because legacy isn't built on novelty. It's built on consistency of message. People need to hear the same truth told through different stories, different seasons, different lenses. That's how your ideas stick. Repetition builds reputation. You'll want to quit. That's proof you're close. Here's something most won't say out loud. Even when everything's working, you'll still want to quit sometimes. You'll get tired. You'll feel uninspired. You'll wonder if it's all worth it. And ironically, those moments often come right before your next breakthrough. Because when you're doing meaningful work, it costs you something. It takes your time, your energy, your presence. But if you can hold the line during those weeks where nothing feels exciting, but you keep showing up, that's when you cement your legacy. Discipline, when uninspired, is the mark of a builder. Think in decades, not days. The biggest mindset shift I made, I stopped thinking in terms of the next upload. I started thinking in decades. What do I want my body of work to look like in 10 years? How do I serve not just the algorithm, but a generation. It sounds big. But when you start thinking that way, everything changes. You stop rushing. You start curating. You think twice before selling something you don't believe in. You realize your name is your brand and your integrity is the product. Teach what will matter, even when you're gone morbid, maybe. But real, absolutely. If something happened to me tomorrow, I want my work to still work. I want someone to stumble onto one of my videos a year from now and still feel seen, still feel supported, still walk away with clarity. That's what drove me to start documenting systems instead of just strategies. Not how to go viral this week, but how to build discipline that survives burnout. How to regulate dopamine in a noisy world. How to use content to create freedom, not anxiety. These are ideas that last. Impact doesn't always announce itself. Some of the people I've helped the most, I never heard from them. No comment, no DM, no testimonial, and yet they changed. Because impact is often invisible. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean it's not happening. Legacy work isn't always loud. It's not always praised. But it's felt. Sometimes years later. You are the proof of your philosophy. Want to build something timeless. Live the message first. You can't fake it for long. You can't outsource conviction. The deeper your integrity, the stronger your influence. People may forget your editing style. They might not remember every hook or thumbnail, but they'll never forget how your message made them feel like they could rise. That's your power. You're not just uploading content, you're building culture. When you speak with consistency, when you live the values you teach, when you create for the person behind the screen, not just the platform, you stop being a content creator. You become a cultural architect. You're shaping beliefs. You're shaping behavior. You're shaping what people think is possible. That's bigger than branding. That's legacy. Let's strip it all down. After everything we've talked about, growth, purpose, clarity, systems, peace, community, legacy, what does it really mean to become CCK withable? It's not about being untouchable. It's not about perfection or bravado or pretending nothing affects you. It's about this. You are deeply rooted in who you are, what you stand for, and what you're building. So nothing external can break you. Not a rude comment, not a low view count, not a client ghosting you, not an algorithm shift, not a rough week. Because you're not anchored to approval anymore. You're anchored to clarity. You respond, you don't react. Coquithable. People don't panic. They pause. They zoom out. They evaluate. They respond intentionally. That means if a launch fails, they ask, what did I learn? If a video flops, they ask, what do I need to adjust? If someone criticizes them, they ask, is there any truth in this? They don't spiral because they've trained their nervous system to remain calm under pressure. Not numb, not indifferent, just grounded. Your identity isn't on the line anymore. This is what changes everything. When you're just starting, every post feels like a vote for your worth. If it performs, you feel validated. If it tanks, you feel ashamed. But the more you evolve, the more you understand. Your work can be judged, but your worth is off limits. You are not your metrics. You are not your last launch. You are not your content calendar. You are the force behind all of it. That force doesn't crack under pressure. It gets sharper. You move with intention, not insecurity. See, withable creators don't chase. They choose. They choose their platform. They choose their message. They choose their pace. They don't rush because someone else is scaling faster. They don't pivot because a viral trend made them feel behind. They stay in their lane because they built that lane brick by brick. It's wide enough. It's deep enough. And it leads exactly where they're going. Discipline replaces drama. Here's a rule. When you're anchored in discipline, you stop creating from drama. You don't post just to prove something. You don't rant just to release tension. You don't create chaos and call it creativity. Instead, you move quietly, consistently, powerfully. Your schedule is sacred. Your rituals are non-negotiable. Your mission is crystal clear. And the drama, it doesn't disappear, but it loses its grip on you. Your vision becomes bigger than your fear. Fear never goes away completely. Let's be honest, every time you publish, pitch, post, or launch, there's risk. But when your vision is big enough, fear shrinks into the background. It becomes noise you learn to walk through. You don't wait for confidence. You move with conviction. And that conviction makes you unshakable, not because you're fearless, but because you're committed. The world can't bribe you anymore. This is when everything changes. When people start offering you deals, shortcuts, exposure money, but you turn down anything that compromises your clarity. You don't sell garbage. You don't promote junk. You don't dilute your message to make $1 because you understand reputation, revenue alignment, applause, peace, popularity. You know who you are, and nobody gets to rent your integrity. That's what makes you powerful. You become a lighthouse, not a lifeboat. You don't save everyone. You're not supposed to. Your job isn't to pull people into safety. It's to stand firm in your truth so others can see clearly. You become a lighthouse, still, bright, solid. You shine in the storm not because you're immune to it, but because you prepared for it. Your message isn't reactive. It's resonant. People feel safer just by hearing you speak. That's the kind of presence that can't be shaken. You're building something that can't be taken from you, and that's the whole point. Money comes and goes. Audiences shift. Platforms rise and fall. Algorithms glitch. But what you've built inside, that resilience, that focus, that clarity, that identity, no one can steal that. That's why you're unequivocable. Because no matter what changes around you, you're still you. You still show up. You still serve. You still create from alignment. That's power. In the end, this isn't about fame. It's about freedom. You didn't start this to be famous. You started because something in you knew there was more. More to say, more to build, more to live for. And the journey has shaped you into someone stronger than you imagined. You are focused. You are calm. You are capable. You are strategic. You are no longer performing for approval. You are building from wholeness. Final words. So, if you're here wondering when it will click, when you'll finally make it, let me offer this. You don't make it by reaching a number. You make it the moment you realize no number defines you. Keep building, keep refining, keep anchoring yourself in clarity and truth. You don't need to yell, you don't need to rush. Just stand tall, because when you know who you are, you become UNF**seek withable, and that is a legacy worth leaving.